G'day everyone, welcome to another installment of the Real Wealth Podcast. It's Tom Gleeson and Stefan Angelini here from Angel Advisory. Thanks for joining us, Steph.
G'day.
So today we want to have a chat about having finances prepared for death. We figure it's Friday, the weekend's about to hit, and what everyone wants to talk about, I imagine, is their own imminent demise. So before we get into it, can you rattle off the disclaimer and then we'll go for it.
Yeah, cool. So if anyone's watching just the short snippet on the social channels, we're going to talk about your wills and powers of attorney, sort of how you can rule from the grave, so how you can control everyone's life a little bit. We'll talk about what's not forming part of your estate. We're going to talk about how you can give away your passwords. What do we say? What are we going to use? The
two different examples. The Da Vinci Code.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen that, I think everyone's at least familiar with Hansel and Gretel. So,
and finally, when it does become into the day, why it's important to simplify everything, just to give everyone peace of mind. So if you want to listen to the whole thing, head on over to the podcast. We're on Spotify. Do you know that? We're on Spotify.
I found that out this morning.
That's right. So number one listened to person at the moment is Ed Sheeran. Number two is Real World Podcast with Stefan and Tom. But if you're out there, just remember that everything you hear here is just general information. Please don't consider it as personal to us. And if you want personal advice, please go and see a licensed financial planner. And guess what? At Angel Advisory, we are financial planners. So head on over to hello@angeladvisory.com.au if you need to talk to someone about your estate plan.
Good. Out of the way.
You're not going to die for a while.
No, I'm not planning it. Why?
Huh?
Have you got plans for me?
No. Every Italian that I know goes between the age of 60 and 80. But when did your grandpa die? How old was he?
Oh, Mum's dad was 100 when he passed away. So yes, good genes. I'm probably around for a while.
Have you got many people that live to 100?
Well, actually, now that I think about it, his dad, who my middle name's named up. Yeah, so that's two in a row that have lived to 100. So then Mum's next. She'll probably bring up the ton, and then I'm after that.
And I can imagine your lifestyle's
not conducive to living 100 years. No. I've made some changes. I'm healthy as a horse now. It's just when I was younger.
So anyway, what's the go? Talking about dying.
Yeah, we want to kick off with basically just touching on wills and powers of attorney, what they are, how they differ, and why we want them in place before we jump into the three different types of wills.
What is a will? A will's going to tell people what you do, what happens to your money when you die.
Yeah.
Right? Power of attorney is... So you can have two types of powers of attorney, which is pretty cool. So just general power of attorney. So that kicks in when you are still of sound mind, we call it. So, let's say you're overseas, someone needs to sign something for you, you can get a general power of attorney done. Then you can get an enduring power of attorney. Now, this kicks in when you cannot make decisions. So you lose capacity to make decisions. It's called an enduring power of attorney, specific names. And you can get it for medical situations, you get it for financial situations, or you can just get a general one. So we'd like to separate all three, but that's really important because, who's medical one? Simple way to do it. Mm-hmm. Who's going to pull the plug? Who's going to make the decision to pull the plug? So I know with my situation, I haven't got my wife doing it because she might be too emotional. Whereas my brother will come in and go, "Nah, see you later." Pull the plug.
Is it actually Tristan?
He won't care. Yeah, so I'll do it together. And then you got financial. So if you got, a lot of people just put their partners on, but it's always good to have a secondary person. So I talk about my situation. I've got a whole lot of stuff going on. So I've actually got my old man that comes in with my wife to make decisions for me financially if something happens to me. So this is the stuff that needs to be signed off by a lawyer because it's pretty important that if you become incapacitated, someone is actually you. To the banks, to the doctor, they make your decisions. So a lawyer needs to sign off to make sure everyone's on board.
Yeah. So the power of attorney stuff concerns while you're still around. The will concerns once you've kicked the bucket.
That's it.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Do you know what happens when you don't have a will?
Fair game. Everyone just see on shit.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
State trustees. So it goes to state trustees. And then they determine who gets the money. And it is pretty much whoever wants to get it. There's almost like a hierarchy. So it'll go to your wife, then it'll go to your kids, then it'll go to your kids you don't know about, then it'll go to your cousins or your parents. So it's almost like there's a hierarchy listed on state trustees on who gets first claim to it. Right. But anyone can come in and try and get access to it. So everyone always prefers for a will to be done. And everyone always thinks about, it's expensive to do a will. It's not.
Yeah.
You can get, we've got access for simple wills. And if you talk about simple wills, if you're just like a husband and wife, PAYG, you've got a home, you don't have many assets, you want to just tell people what happens to the money when you die.
Yep.
And they can take that will, go through probate, and hopefully make the process really easy. you can get that done for like $100 by a lawyer. So there's lawyers out there that have online systems that just spit out these wills online. So if you need access to that, let us know because we've got a really good one. But then wills can become more complex, right?
Yeah, that $100 will concerns the simple will, doesn't it?
That's
as
it,
opposed to the complex and the ultra.
Yeah. So what do you say? What goes into a complex will?
Testamentary trust.
Yeah.
It's testamentary trust.
Testamentary trust. Yeah. So testamentary trust is, I like to explain it as you concern, like to two different types of people want a testamentary trust. So it's basically when you start getting a lot of money, I say when you start getting a decent amount of net assets is when you want to start thinking about a testamentary trust. And when you got kids or someone you want to leave money to. For young people or for younger people is when you've got young kids, you don't really know what's going to happen with their relationship status as time goes on. But importantly, that if you have a whole lot of wealth and you go for whatever reason, in your will, you want to make sure you've got like the guardian set up. So who do the kids go to? But also the testamentary trust, what it does, it creates a really good tax planning element to it. So kids who have money in their own name get taxed at adult tax rates when they earn passive income. Sorry, that's a lie. That's wrong. They actually get taxed at worse than adult tax rates. Yeah. So once they earn above $416 from passive income, their tax rate goes right up. So you could imagine, like, if you own a house or whatever, and let's say whatever the family gets $3 million, you've got 3 kids, they get $1 million each. If they have that in a bank, and let's say they earn 3% interest on that each, they earn $30,000 a year. And they're going to be paying a really big amount of tax on that. If, however, you set up this testamentary trust, their tax rate actually goes to adult tax rates. So the money's in the trust, it gets used, the people taking care of them can access the trust to help the kids, but the tax in there is adult tax rates. It's a lot more efficient.
Is that fairly controlled where the guardian is able to access that money, but only for the purposes of what's in the interest of the child that's been passed on to them?
That's it. Yeah. So you've got these whole different people that are like, one person will look over. So when you set up the testamentary trust, you've got to say who's the appointer, who's the beneficiary, who's the trustee, and they sort of work together to make sure it's always in the benefit of the kids down below. So it's a great tax planning tool for when you have younger kids, but when you're older and you've got an even bigger amount of wealth, you've got to have a sizable amount of wealth still, and you've got kids, and we know how many people get divorced these days. Do you know anyone that's been divorced?
I mean, I do,
not close friends.
Like not as in recently?
Not recently, no. Everyone's still too young, right?
I think most people are, like our mates, are on their first marriage.
What do they say? Half the amount of people get divorced? Right, so half the amount of people get divorced. You could imagine if you're older and you've got a kid, let's say you've got a son who's got a partner that you don't really like, and you die, you kick the bucket, and the money goes to your son in their personal name. It's also the wife's in their personal name because they made the money together. And that means she has claim to it, especially if there's kids involved. It can get quite ugly because when she comes in, she takes part of the money. She goes to get a new partner. That becomes his money too. And it just becomes all muddled, right? So you can't really rule that from the grave. But if you spend some money up front, you get this testamentary trust done. The money, when you die, so let's say money in your personal name, say your house sells, you got other assets in your personal name, maybe properties, it goes into this bucket called a testamentary trust. Trustees are your kids. So it becomes their money for when they want it, or you can have it allocated towards the grandkids. No one else can get access to that money. So it sits there for the sole purpose of those people. And it's very tough for like ex-partners and things like that to actually get claim to it.
Right.
And that's where it's like that asset protection. So you sort of like you're passing it down through your bloodline. And skipping the people you might not like. Or that might not be in life forever.
Sounds brutal, but when you lay it out like, then someone gets remarried and then they have access to it, makes sense.
Well, it's like, because you can get all these other people that get your money. So it's just that protection. And if you're like a lot of people that I know, they're like, no. I want, the money's not actually for my kid. The money's for my grandkid.
I
don't care. Like my kids are now set up. It's fine.
They're already earning. It's
But now when, like, I can imagine 40 years ago, divorce wasn't that big. Like there wasn't as many people getting divorced as there are now. There's so many more options to separate from your partner, especially when you got Hinge and Tinder and online. How easy it is to do online dating now.
Theoretically, I suppose if you had Hinge and Tinder,
it's easy. I don't know. I've never used it.
Have you not?
No,
you missed all that.
No, I got on a few weeks ago. No, I'm joking, Whitney. I'm joking. So anyway, so that's why different people want to set up these testamentary trusts. And that's the complex part. We say complex is testamentary. You've got some money. You might need to think about adding in this extra layer of security in your wills just to protect the main people to you from either taxes or from partners or people you don't want to get the money.
Yeah, fair enough. So you got simple, you've got your $100 will if that's what's required. For complex, a certain level of income or assets dictates the need for complex, which has that testamentary trust structure.
Yeah.
I think he's referred to it as ruling from beyond the grave, which sounds pretty sinister, but and then the last one is ultra complex.
All right, ultra complex. When people own businesses and trusts and have multiple trusts, you need to add all these things like memorandum of wishes. What do you wish to happen with your money? Because you can't fully rule a company when you're gone.
Yeah.
I mean, you can set up like, I guess, procedures and templates and what you want to happen and how they should run the company. But really, it's someone's got to take over and do what they want to do with it.
Yeah, and you're not there to enforce anything that you've put in place. You're not there to enforce it.
That's right. Yeah. So your memorandum of wishes might say, with my company, I want you to go and sell this asset, do this, transfer this money over here. Just wind the company up. I don't really care. But you got to nominate in the will who's going to be the director.
Yeah.
And when you got trust and things like that, who's going to come in as different trustees? You own the shares, who's going to take over the share ownership, and who's going to make all the decisions. So you might say, all right, well, I want my kids, if you own a business, say, I want my kids to come in as a director, but then I want my wish is to have this person actually be as a managing director and approve everything that happens. Someone that's been in the business for 20 years.
Outside of
the family.
In addition to, okay.
Yeah. So the family might still own it, but that person's an ultra decision maker. So it becomes more complex when you start going down who makes decisions and what assets go where and what do we do with all of our assets. And it's more or less around what do we want to happen? What we'd like to happen?
Yep.
Not what will actually happen.
Yep.
So it's just like, all right, well, someone's going to come back to the book and say, Tom wanted this to happen. And then people are going to decide, yeah, we can either do that or we can just throw it away.
Yeah.
So you can try and rule, but not so much. But that's where you get more complex. You need these memorandums or these wishes to sort of come into it and play their role.
Yeah. So speaking of assets, the next one we want to address is non-estate assets. So things that aren't covered by the will and how you address those. Just because they're excluded from. So I suppose, can we look at the three broad categories of what's excluded and also why they're excluded, why they're not part of the will?
Yeah, cool. All right. So three broad categories is your super.
Yep.
Doesn't form part of the will.
Yep.
So super is a non-estate asset. You nominate a beneficiary. So you can actually nominate for your super to go to a specific person in the event you die.
Yep.
That's called a beneficiary nomination. Everyone should have one done in their super funds.
Yeah.
If you don't have it, it's going to go down through your will and become an estate asset. Or if you nominate 100% to your legal personal representative, it will go down to your will.
Yep.
Right. And then it becomes an estate asset. But you can actually say, let's say, I want to give my money directly to my kids. I don't want it to go to my wife. Then I can say I nominate for the money to go directly to my kids 50-50 because I've got 2 kids.
Yep.
And my wife won't get the money. Won't get paid to her to get paid to my kids.
Yeah. So it's not required to be part of the will. When the addition of a beneficiary means that the instructions are already there.
Yeah. The next one?
Investment bonds.
Investment bonds. Ooh, these are cool. Such a dork. Right. I just called myself a dork. Excuse me. Investment bonds these are something that's not under your tax file number. Investment bond is like a structure that's set up outside of your personal name, still yours, but you get all these tax benefits of holding it. So you can cap your tax rate at 30%, can go as low as 0%. But with these, they're called again a non-estate asset. So it's because outside of your tax file number, it doesn't form part of your will. We see a lot of these used for, say, older Australians who want money to go directly to their grandkids at a certain age.
Yeah.
So they might set up this investment bond and say, I know that I'm 90 years old and I've got my kids that are 15 years old and I want money to go to them when they're 30. They'll set up this investment bond. They'll put in $100,000 each. And then it won't, when they die, the money won't go to their kids. Yeah, because outside of the estate, it'll stay there and then it'll go to the beneficiaries at whatever age it becomes available.
Whatever you've dictated as part of the bond.
Yeah, that's it. And that's a common way we see it used.
Yeah, okay.
A common way. So that's, again, something that's not forming part of the will.
Yeah.
What's the other one?
Last one, what have we done? Investment bonds, super, and trusts. Trust structures.
Trust. So like when businesses are spent for businesses, trusts, go to these wishes. You can sort of say who comes in and who controls it. But really, what forms part of your estate is things in your personal names.
Yep.
things that are in trusts and companies, you need to make sure they're handled in another way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's important to make sure you differentiate it, because as you start building your wealth, start buying assets in trusts, start buying, you start buying properties in trusts, for example, right? You have land tax bills, you start building investment portfolios in trusts.
Yeah.
So it doesn't form part of your will. So you need to have another way to determine what to do with that.
And it doesn't form part of your will because it's not in your name. The trust structure exists as a separate entity to you. The will concerns you as a person.
That's it.
Yeah.
That perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Cool. So that's covering off a little bit of, I suppose, it's background for, we're here to prepare our finances for death. That's a background into wills, powers of attorney, what is and isn't an estate asset. Next thing we want to look at is the administrative side of getting ready for, or being ready, because we don't know when it's going to happen. I mean, I'm going to last longer than you. We've done that genetically.
Yeah.
But,
will it actually happen?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could get hit by a bus, but it's not in the plans. So getting things ready, like preparing for what's going to happen when you're not around. Who knows your own situation better than you? Probably nobody. So how are you going to set yourself up for when someone else comes in to divide up the assets, to do all the administrative work when you're not there?
Yeah.
And a key part of that is passwords.
Everything's online now.
Exactly, which is why I've started changing passwords to be a bit more uniform, but I had like a different one for every platform. You would have seen me try to log in like MyGov and stuff, and I'm getting text messages and emails and stuff because I just forget them all.
Yeah, well, that's why I've got like a password system now, but in saying I've got to record the password for that somewhere. So it's all about recording your passwords.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's so hard for people now to get into things. Like the big companies around the world now have policies that allow people to get access, but it's like still you got to jump through so many hoops, because you can imagine someone's going to pop in and say, hey, look, I want to get into Tom's account. He's dead.
Yeah.
Like he's a fake certificate. Can you let me in?
Yeah. I want to see his savings account.
Yeah. So there's so many different, like, I guess, risks around that part. So yeah, back in the day, it used to be, you want to know about my situation, look at the folder in my study. My desk, going to pull that out, have a look, here's everything you need.
Yeah.
And then my bank accounts, go speak to the bank.
Yeah.
And that was pretty easy. But now everyone's got a different login account. People have cryptocurrency accounts. Different banks, online banks, there's no actual store you can go into. How do you access all these things? And how do you figure out what this person's actually got?
Everyone's got multiple supers as well. You have a job when you're 15, 16, 17, that's one. Then you get a different job, then you move, then you do this. Like my own was complex enough trying to get all my ducks in a row, let alone trying to do it for someone else. Be like, I don't know who they were with when they were 20.
That's right. That's why I reckon it's important to have things simplified, but like life's easier when it's simplified. You want to make sure it goes whenever you die, the next generation come in and go, oh, that's pretty easy. Like they've only got one super fund, not 6.
Yeah.
They've only got money with one bank, not 10. And that makes life a lot easier. But back to where we were with passwords, is it's a growing area that people don't really think about anymore, that, someone needs to be able to get into my accounts.
Yeah.
At one point. So there's different mechanisms that people can use. Some people write everything down in a book that's still in the folder, in the study behind them, or in a safe. And we see people come in with their books that have all their passwords written in it.
Yeah, it's not common, but it is still done.
Yeah, for the older generations.
I was going to say.
But as you get more complex, and if you're like me and really value security, especially now with cybersecurity and like how big cyber attacks are, you need your passwords sort of spread. So there's different methods of doing that.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Well, one of them we touched on before was the Da Vinci Code method, which is identifying people that are going to be somewhat responsible for your administration when you've passed away, breaking passwords in half to your partner, half to a mate, a neighbor, can't be a parent, that wouldn't work. Whoever you want. But breaking it up, I mean, not so complex that you have to break into the Vatican, call Tom Hanks. If you haven't seen the movie, that's not gonna make any sense. But like simple way of breaking it up to be like, here's part of the password, here's part here. You two are gonna come together when I kick the bucket anyway. Yeah. You're gonna chat, go for it. Yeah. You've both got the pieces.
That's it. So people you trust.
Yeah.
Piecing together the code.
Could be a fun activity at your funeral.
Yeah. Hey, what do you know?
No, that's
what do you know?
Joke.
I've got the first half. You got the second half?
No. Yeah.
Or you can send them on a wild goose chase.
Oh, that's the other one.
Hansel and Gretel. I like that one.
The breadcrumbs.
Tell me what you mean by that.
Well, it's just a more complex version of the first one and more open to gamesmanship.
Well, let's be honest. There's a lot of people out there that don't trust 2 people. Therefore, they want to make a game of it together.
Yeah.
They make it harder.
Yeah, you want to split if they don't trust 2 people with 50%, but they might trust 10 people with 10%.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of, lead them on a bit of a It's like a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
But like pick bright people who can follow clues. Otherwise, you're just going to end up with 80% of the password because two of your friends are morons.
So set up clues along the way so people can go play a game, go find the next password, or figure out how your passwords are all set, or things might be hiding in different locations.
Yeah. And then you end up in a situation where people are like, thank God Tom's gone. He was so annoying. Like, this is such an annoying activity that he's set for us.
Some people like the security.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Fair. Yep.
They like security, so they might want to do it that way. So if you're one of those people who don't trust anyone, and would prefer for people to go on a wild goose chase to find out your passwords because you don't want anyone to come behind your back and get them, might be a good idea. But yeah, that's it.
And then the final one is just covering off on the, I suppose, the core reasons for simplifying all this administrative work before. Even if you are healthy and you're not planning on going anywhere, get it done, because you don't know when you're going to get hit by a bus or God knows what. But the core reasons for simplifying all this stuff is, one thing that's become clear in conversations that we have with clients is it's not all about dollars and cents. A huge thing is peace of mind.
Yeah.
And this is what you're providing to loved ones who are responsible for you and your assets once you've gone. So if you can simplify it, do it. Get the systems in place while you can.
Yeah, that's it. Like, we're lucky; we record pretty much everyone's entire financial situation. So we say to clients, "Who's going to know the most about your situation? Us or your kids?" And they'll go, "You probably will."
Yep.
Okay. So we have like a central record of everything, especially for our older clients. But yeah, that's all I say though. I just want to make sure that when I'm gone, they can just get everything flows on nicely to them, and it's not everywhere. They're not trying to figure out, they're not trying to solve, the Da Vinci Code to get it done. That's what a lot of people want, just simplification. And you don't need it. You don't need to wait until you're 85 years old to do it.
That's it.
You can do it. You can do it earlier and just make sure life is arranged in a simple way. You don't have things everywhere. I mean, I've still got things everywhere.
You're pulling it together bit by bit, though.
Yeah, slowly.
One bit at a time.
Slowly. But yeah, mate, peace of mind is huge, and that's why people get their estate plans sorted. And that's why people have their wills, their powers of attorney done, and all their beneficiary nominations sorted. So they know that if anything does happen, because we don't know when the bus is going to come, that everything's sorted for the next people taking over all that stuff.
And that's one that we push with anything to do with super is, hey, we need to get this nomination sorted, because I mean, in the short term, the read I get is that it's a bit of admin and it can be a bit of a pain because it's all wet signatures and back and forth. But once it's done, it's done.
It's done.
You've done it now.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what people always try to do. They try to wait to do a will at a certain point. Just get it done and then change it if you need to.
I did my first will when I was like 24.
Did you?
Yeah, because we were going to go overseas. So they were like, they handed them out, like, everyone do a will. And like, I'm not proud of this. I thought it was funny. I made mum and dad the executors.
Yeah.
And I made my brother the 100% beneficiary. So the situation that I pictured at the time was they would get up and just read out like golf clubs, wardrobe. Like, I didn't have much. I was 24. And just read out Jared again. My sister's been like, what is this?
That's cool, because we don't want it, because we don't want to have to dispose of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Great work, Tommy. Thanks for the chat.
No worries. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for covering off on, like I said, a bit of a grim topic to take into the weekend, but it's worth doing.
That's it. All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks everyone for listening. We will see you soon. Bye.
Cheers.